This is a joint presentation by myself and Steve. It's in 4 parts. I'll do 1 and 3, Steve will do 2 and 4. So the first question is, what is a dark sky nation? Concept of dark sky nation was something that sort of came up when we were at the Galloway conference in Scotland 2 years ago. I was making a presentation and I made this comment that New Zealand is so dark, the whole country could go dark. It was a casual observation. John Valentine from IDA was in the audience and he asked me, do you mean the dark sky nation? And I said yes. And then we got talking, and that conversation's carried on for 2 years now. So recently, in May 2018, he visited New Zealand, and I actually arranged for him to go and visit all the aspiring dark sky places in New Zealand at the time. And he made a presentation, and he felt we could go forward. So the conversation got shared at the RASNZ conference in May 2018, and since then we have continued to talk about it. And in recent months, I put a lot of pressure on John to tell us, if you want to go to dark sky nation, what accreditation do we need? And it's evolving for them, and it's evolving for us. So we will discuss that now. So it is designed as an overarching designation. So it's not in place of the dark sky places designation that are already there. So every aspiring dark sky place in New Zealand can and should go forward and get their designations. They are not mutually exclusive. The overarching one is for the country as a whole. And there will be some criteria that go with it. And since Ruskin came on board 6 months ago, the shift in IDA is towards results rather than activities. It's not saying, okay, we measured the darkness, we changed the lighting policy, and whatever. He wants to say more results. So it's sort of shifting towards results. So this is the current draft. It's not finished. It's going to the Dark Sky Places Committee in either December or January, and then it's got to go to the board. So at the moment, these are the two criteria. Stabilization of the growth rate of the national lifetime emissions. We'll talk about it. So they're now talking about lifetime emissions that are measured up there, rather than us sort of changing rules here. So the rule change has to result in diminished light rather than change the rules. And then we have to show that a certain percentage, a certain fraction of the country's land area is protected, legally protected for dark skies. And they were quite clear that the protection doesn't necessarily mean IDA accreditation. It can be protected through other legislation, like Whitehacker ranges as a legislation. So if we have got enough dark areas protected, preferably with IDA, then we have consistent good best practices, and we can show we have stabilized the growth of light pollution. Those are the two overarching things they are looking for. And IDA plans to continue to monitor it over a long period, because results take time to show up. So at one point in the conversation, John mentioned 10 years, and sort of I hit the roof saying, 10 years is too long for people to be motivated for that long. So they have willing to work on a milestone basis. So if we reach certain milestones, so the risk we run, John pointed out, is if they give us on milestone basis and 10 years down the track our light pollution's gone up, in theory we run the risk of it being taken away. But I don't think that will happen. So this is a paper that came out. Chris Kaiba, who spoke to us, he put this out and he talked about it. So New Zealand, this is an interesting chart. Australia actually looks as if its change has been less than 1%. But they took that was the effect of wildfires. So when they adjusted for it and made it stable, New Zealand is actually doing better. It's around 1%. So compared to the world, we are not doing too badly. So the world light emissions are growing at a rate of 2% per annum. New Zealand is growing at a rate of 1% per annum. and the population is growing at a rate of 1% per annum. I'm sorry about the colors, I know what's gone wrong. The other thing they have done, the same paper, is measured the light emission changes over a 4-year period, 2012 to 2016. So that's where the 2% comes from. Artificially lit area that's artificially lit has gone up by 2.2%. Total radiance has gone up by 1.8%. New Zealand is around 1%. And brightness of continually lit areas have gone up by 2.2%. And that's the chart, that's the radiance. So that's a global one. New Zealand's falling lower than that. And the change, that's a global change. New Zealand is fluctuating, but it stays below the world change. So we are already doing okay. And land area under protection, I worked it all out. We have only got 2.4% of our land area accredited by IDA. And the total international land area protected is 0.1% of the global land area. So we are doing better than the global average. Wales, which is another country, sub-nation as IDA calls it, they also want dark sky nation. So this conversation has been going on with IDA from New Zealand end for 2 years and Wales end for a little less than that, I think. And they have about 18% of the land area protected. It's a small area. So there are 2 countries, or sub-nation as IDA calls it, talking to them. These are the indicative progressive milestones. The country's total light emissions to change by a specified amount per year. We talked about the legally enacted outdoor lighting policy. Government incentive scheme to reduce lighting demand. We haven't worked out what it is. And IDA is quite happy for our government to decide what that could be. Light pollution education in national school curriculum. Now that can be hard to achieve. But Margaret Austin's very happy about it. Key stakeholder commitments, so we haven't defined who the key stakeholders are, but they'll expect some sort of support from there. And a number of locations designated by IDA, conservation best practices adopted by land management agencies, like what Nikki talked to us about, and a formation of a national IDA chapter. So there are lots of IDA chapters in the US. Some other countries have it. Australia has more than 1 chapter, I believe. But New Zealand doesn't have a chapter, and that's one of the requirements they'd like to see. Steve takes over at this point.
Thank you. Now, Steve Butler has been one of the organising team. He is the New Zealand's representative for the IDA and writes our report. So he is actually responsible for the International Dark Sky Reserve being declared the International Dark Sky Park of the World in 2018.
The hat I'll put on for this session is actually from the Royal Astronomical Society of New Zealand, and I've got a role there. We're the Dark Skies group, which was established about 2003, and I'm the leader of that group. So a bit of what's included in this session will come from that sort of area of work. So in some sense, we have an overarching national sort of view of the country in terms of dark skies from that dark skies group. So dark skies place versus dark sky nation. So the dark sky places, as I think Nalayini mentioned, was still important. It's a commitment to conservation, preservation, history and culture, which has been quite a strong theme through this conference, astrotourism and economic development, so the advantages for communities to pick up on. The overarching Dark Sky Nation designation, it's about strengthening the whole importance at a national level, magnify the benefits for each dark sky place and increase collaboration. So where are we at the moment? In your conference bag you would have had the Royal Society paper on blue light. Ministry for Environment have released a study on air pollution which includes about 4 pages on light pollution, the importance of that culturally and scientifically and environmentally. Monitoring of the light pollution has also been picked up by Statistics New Zealand, and National Coastal Policy Statement is a managed process, and these are quite high level environmental documents. So each one of those has come as a result of the work of the Royal Astronomical Society's Dark Skies group making submissions. So we are already finding, just in the last year or two, that we're getting, the door is starting to open in terms of management or governance, application. Society of Maori Astronomy Research and Traditions, and that's a group that we should really align with for astronomy. And local dark sky places and a number of individuals have been lobbying NZTA to get lower Kelvin lighting into their towns and communities. So lobbying and information and prodding. There's the blue light report. So growing concern about the exposure to artificial sources of blue light. That's the Ministry for Environment's year report as part of a wider environmental monitoring series that they do. So to get light pollution into that is quite a major achievement. Now that document and the following statistics page on light pollution came as a result of a Ministry for Environment and Department of Conservation program about 2 years ago, which was called Science and Conservation Roadmap, where they went out to the public and asked for, what are the things we should be working on, where's the research required. And so the Dark Skies group submitted to that and said, we should be monitoring our light pollution. The satellite systems are there, we can be starting to do that. So we've now at least established a 2014 baseline satellite data datum for New Zealand. And that was the Coastal Policy Statement, and you might wonder about light pollution, but as we've heard, it's extremely important for a number of our native species. So the 2 elements that we got into that was, there's 2 elements that I think are very important, and it's about preserving natural character. The natural elements, processes and patterns, which was, not our submission, but ours was on the natural darkness of the night sky. But the natural processes part, that I think is the real key for managing light. We have that natural day-night cycle. That's a natural process, and it's one of the most dominant natural processes for all life on this planet. If we mess with that, we suffer. And this is the Society of Maori Astronomy Research and Traditions, so they're well established, and that's a group that we need to work much more closely with. So that's in the future. Future possibilities. So Richard is nationally applicable outdoor lighting legislation or policy, so these are these sort of high-level policy statements, and I thoroughly agree with that. Light pollution education, again, is Margaret's, a nod to Margaret's background in education, promotion of New Zealand as a dark sky for a number of benefits, a number of reasons. Benefits, protecting the night sky in total, hence diminish the risk to the dark sky communities. National awareness of dark sky leading to better lighting use, minimising ecological impact, minimising impact on human health, preservation of culture, reduce the cost of lighting, preserve the night skies, and increase attractiveness as New Zealand as a dark sky tourism destination. And overall, the Dark Sky Nation concept is congruent with and supportive of New Zealand's international image as clean and green. And one of the other tourist tags that we have is that New Zealand is 100% pure. Well, it's really only 50% pure because the light environment hasn't been protected. So, our bit is to provide that extra 50%, get back to 100%.
Yeah, so the benefits are very obvious and they come through during this conference. So the next question is, okay, where are we at? Where do we start? So this is, everyone knows this, relative to the global dark skies, we are doing pretty well. But the problem we've got is, although more than half our land area has pristine dark skies, only 2.8% of the population lives there. A lot of people live in cities here. And degraded dark skies are 84.9%. I mean, that's pretty good dark skies really, with Milky Way and all of that, but still only 8.6% of the population lives there. And Milky Way can be seen from 96.5% of the land, and 16.6% of the population lives there. Although it's pretty good compared to global sort of developed countries, not as good as Australia, but no one goes to the middle of Australia. So we are at the leading end of developed world with accessible dark skies. So they're pretty abundant. You can see where the problems are: Auckland, Hamilton, Christchurch, Dunedin, the cities. But Adam from IDA observed that there are a lot of cities. I mean, it struck me. I was thinking, oh my God, you got all these cities. But he said, oh, you haven't got a lot of cities in this country. So this, we also, New Zealand government, I think, is the only one that's purchased the World Atlas statistics from Fabio and put it on the New Zealand Stats website with the air quality report. So we are ahead. We are becoming aware and we are accepting the global findings. This is a map I put together. This is the one that triggered this whole Dark Sky Nation conversation. I put it together for the Galloway conference. This is United Kingdom, that's New Zealand. We are comparable in land area, almost the same. We have got 65.5 million population, we are under 5 million. And yet, they had 11 dark sky places. Look at that map and look at us. And at that time, we only had 2. We had Aoraki, Mackenzie, and that's what made me say that, we can go dark all over compared to this. So that also tells its own story. Then there's been a rapid increase in nationwide interest in dark skies. It's happened in literally the last couple of years, and we have 17 of them, and they are starting from far north right down to Rhode Island. So and most of them are here. And then I put this map together, which is the astronomical societies in this country. I once made a comment that we have more astronomers per capita in New Zealand, and John corrected me and said it was Iran. So I don't know the veracity of that. But we have lots of astronomical societies, 22 of them, and I have overlaid the dark sky places on that. So, and all the places that have been accredited so far have been well supported by the astronomic community. In Aoraki Mackenzie, having the observatory helped. Richard said in his talk how Auckland Astronomical Society helped, and Southland was helped by Steve and the Astronomical Society there. So there is good support available to all these areas. And the reason those astronomical societies are there is they're already observing the night sky. It's dark enough. Very soon. This is one more slide, I think. So progress in fighting light pollution. Recently we've been making progress there. Aoraki Mackenzie have got approval to do 2,200. Stewart Island, they have changed their lights with bollards and whatever. Naseby and Central Otago. These towns are not even aspiring to dark skies, but they've already changed it to 3,000 Kelvin. Martinborough has gone 3000 Kelvin, Davies has gone 3000. Kyra told us today they are going to 2200 in the coastal areas. Waiheke East, lights, 4000 Kelvin lights that were installed just a few months ago were replaced last month with 3000 Kelvin lights so that they can go forward with their accreditation. And NZ criteria for luminaires acceptable has been changed slightly, and the words such as dark skies reserves have been added. So suddenly they've woken up and put that as an exception. So that will help go forward. Margaret's rushing me. But this is an international comparison I did just to show that New Zealand's doing pretty well, but Germany is doing a bit better with light emissions. And then we can have better quality, sustainable tourism. Tourism is a major thing for New Zealand. So all we are going to do is hopefully shift the type of visitors and the type of tourism we provide.